The attacker is believed to have acted alone, but since then, Robin, we know that there have been a number of arrests in this investigation, 11 people. So how do you make sense of that? Could that be an indication he wasn't acting alone?
Well, after an event like this, it's no real surprise, and it's actually quite common that the police will arrest known associates of his who may be on the also on the intelligence radar, just because they want to be especially cautious and play it safe and speak to anyone they think may have information. Who is charged and who actually was aiding and abetting Khalid Masood obviously isn't clear, but you need to say that there's sometimes these attacks are referred to as lone wolves, but actually genuine lone wolf attacks where the perpetrator doesn't have any kind of radical contacts or anything like that, any assistants, any accomplices, are actually very rare. So it's no great surprise that there are these arrests. We'll have to just wait and see whether that's translated to actual prosecutions.
No, you make a very good point. Over all of the terrorism stories I've covered and traveled for, there are periphery individuals who are involved. In this case, though, with Masood, the attacker had, quote, been once assessed as low risk. And so do you think that that is a marker that may have mischaracterized Masood? Because he was 52 years old, and typically we've seen much younger people being involved in these style of attacks.
Well, yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, I think the problem with hindsight, of course, is a wonderful thing on this. I mean, his profile didn't especially fit, I think especially the age didn't especially fit of the profile of what you see of terrorists in Europe. But, you know, it's really hard for the security services and the police on this because they have to track so many people. There's 3,000 people on the intelligence radar that the British Domestic Intelligence Service think could be potential terrorists. Khalid Masood obviously was on the radar at some point, but slipped off. You know, that's not necessarily an intelligence failure. This isn't an exact science. It's very hard for the intelligence agencies to get this right every time. They get it right a lot of the time. It's impossible to do it every time.
And I wanted to talk about this because it's been a big week for the story on electronics larger than a cell phone being banned on flights to the U.S. This is coming from certain overseas airports. Robin, I wanted to play for you former Secretary of Homeland Security Jay Johnson, his reaction to this ban. Take a listen.
An outright ban on things larger than an iPhone from these 10 airports in 8 countries is significant. I haven't accessed the intelligence over the last 2 months, but folks, aviation security experts, our intelligence community must be seeing things that are significant to prompt this action.
So he's saying something significant must have been in the intelligence community's radar to prompt this. So there's a concern about real non-metallic explosive material in devices. Do you think that there really is cause for immediate alarm about this, and this is a smart, proactive move?
Well, I mean, this is now the US and the UK have done this. They've slightly different countries are on the list from the US to the UK about where this ban is applied. But there's definitely something that the intelligence community is seeing. There may be a slightly different interpretation of that intelligence, but there's something that the US and the UK, who remember have a very close intelligence sharing relationship, have seen that means that they think this is justified. How long it lasts, I suppose, is the next question. I mean, we've not tended to see these airport security measures rolled back. They've tended to stay in place. But we know that Al-Qaeda especially has targeted aviation in the past. I would suggest there's something very specific somewhere in the intelligence mosaic of the information that's coming through that meant they thought this was the prudent move.
Well, we know the failed attempts at the underwear bomber, the shoe bomber, the terrorists, and the creative ideas that they come up with to try to utilize and target the aviation industry. Is this almost too easy to predict, Robin? The fact that this would be the target as opposed to something else that would be a little more elusive, a little more creative than targeting basically everybody that's traveling, because most of us would have a device larger than an iPhone.
I mean, it can, of course, seem heavy-handed, and the same argument could be made about everyone taking their shoes off at the airport. I think the problem is, from their point of view, the intelligence agency's point of view, if they've got some suggestion, if they've picked up some piece of intelligence that this is a plausible threat, and that this measure could save hundreds, potentially thousands of lives, but they didn't act upon it, then of course there would be major criticism were an attack to take place. The age we live in, the nature of the terrorist groups that operate today, I think there's very much a safety-first approach from the intelligence agencies, and while it may be inconvenient for many people traveling, I certainly understand that.
Robin Simcox. Robin, great to have you on, sir. Thank you. So we have